Hello everyone, welcome back to lecture for lesson 2.2. We're going to continue on with our chapter. This one, the lesson title is 88 miles per hour, and what they're kind of getting you to think of is this per hour. What does that mean? So many miles per hour. So this is the way that we talk about rates. Okay? Speed is something that we're kind of commonly use, but that's not the only rate that you would find out in the workforce. So we could talk about miles per hour, how many miles we traveled in 1 hour, or so if I did 50 miles in an hour, that's obviously 50 miles per hour. If I did 100 miles and it took me 2 hours to get there, I'd do the 100 miles divided by the 2 hours. That would be 50 miles an hour still. I'll still be doing an average of that same average of 50 miles per hour. Okay? We can do other type of rates, and basically a rate is a comparison between one and the other. So 50 feet per second, I've gone a different distance of 50 feet, and in 1 second, or the average of, I make a $9 an hour a rate. That's my work rate. For every hour I work, I get $9. And here I make $3.50 for every box I sell, $3.50 per box, $9 per hour, 50 per second. And here are some things that aren't there's some rates, but they aren't per unit. These are unit rates, so it's a per unit of the second variable output. Here are some rates that aren't unit rates: $100 for 8 hours, 240 miles per 4 hours, dollar at 0.25 miles. But if I divide these out so that I get a per unit, a per 100 divided by 8, 8 divided by 8, that just basically gives me, it turns it into a unit rate. So these are rates of change, one thing per this other change. What about these conversion factors that we studied earlier? Both are fractions, they look just the same, but they're different in that one was an equivalent measure, so that if I have 1 yard, that's 3 feet, it was the same length, but it was just a different measure. Here I'm not comparing the same quantities. There is one unit and a different unit, and these are not the same. Okay. So let's explore the idea of rates of change as a comparison between changes in two quantities a little more. Now I'm going to get rid of me so I won't be in our way. As a comparison between changes in two quantities a little more. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, about 2.7% of registered nurses in 1970 were men, compared to 9.6% in 2011. In 2011, the average salary for male nurses was $60,700 per year, while the average annual salary for female nurses was $51,100. How much did the percentage of male nurses increase from 1970 to 2011? So here was the increase. It went from 2.7 up to 9.6. So that's an increase of 6.9%. Now let's figure out how many years passed during that time. We started at 1970, we went up to 2011. That was 40 years. And now I want to kind of relate these two, even though they are not directly related like feet and yards. I want to say this is going to change each or per year. So I want to change this into a unit. Instead of saying 6.9% over 41 years, I'm going to do the division, and that gives us 0.168, 6.9 divided by 41 as a percent. That's basically saying 0.168% per year. So that per means a division. That year is in the bottom. So the percentage of male nurses increased on average 0.168% each year. This is a rate of change because it compares a change in one thing, percentage, to a change in a second variable, which is the time. What about the pay rate of women when compared to men? If I just compared the rates of, or the pay for women and compared to men, the annual salary for female nurses was $51,100. The male nurses were $60,700, which is just 0.84 per $1 or 0.84. Okay, so that comparison of dollars were 0.84 per every $1. They only made 84 cents per every $1. Okay. What does that tell you about the gender gap in pay for nurses? So that's kind of how we could compare two different pays. Female nurses make on average 84 cents for every $1 male nurses make. There are no good explanations of the real reasons or a good conversation. So why is this not a rate of change? It compares two salaries, not two changes in salaries. So this, for a rate, we want to do a change in the top divided by a change in the bottom, not just simply a division of the top and the bottom. There has to be a change, the change between one unit and change between a different unit, but though the two are related that we're looking at, they're not directly the same. Okay. So continue on, continue looking at your group work, your class, go back and review the book, and we'll see you next time.